Hello, this reflective journal entry is brought to you by our case studies who are now in the second stage. Yay! Always fun. So our first, who is the primip, who is feeling the urge to push and is being grunty with her contractions. I would like to see that she stays grunty with her contractions. I think sometimes what I've seen with primips, in all the 50 births that I've been to, not that many overall, is that sometimes they get a little bit like they run out of motivation and think, oh, it's time to push. I want to push. I know I'm close enough. And so they start pushing even though their body isn't really telling them, it isn't that undeniable urge to push. I've seen this happen several times with primips. So I think it's important at this point to offer some encouragement and direction and education on what the body's going to be doing in the second stage and how, like, the undeniable need to push is going to happen. You don't have to convince your body of it. Excuse me. I've been sick for too long. Another thing that I think is necessary with primips, if they should consent, is a vaginal exam to make sure that there's no cervical lip. I have had the privilege of learning this from 3 different transfers that I can think of that actually resulted in C-sections. Because primip was bearing down, hadn't had a vaginal exam in a while, and felt that need to push. Baby was in a posterior position, and then baby was not ready. The cervix was not ready. The cervix was not complete, and it swelled. I have seen arnica work really well for swollen cervixes, homeopathic arnica. Haven't tried the topical stuff. I've seen that work really well. But bearing down on an incomplete cervix can make it swell, and unfortunately can be a factor leading towards C-section, although that's not like 100% of the time that's the cause, is the cervix swelling. There were other factors as well. And then I have a story for our second case study, who is the multip, who is on the toilet and suddenly declares, the baby's coming. A couple weeks ago, I'm at the birth center all day. We had a few moms in labor. One had her baby down the hall, and I just get this sense, I need to go back in the other room and see what's going on in there. So that baby had just come out. Placenta wasn't even coming out, but everything was fine. So I run back down the hall, and this mom is on the toilet, and it's her third baby, and dad's with her in the bathroom, and I walk in and hear a and I was like, oh, was that pushy with that contraction? And she was like, I don't know. So I'm like, how about we get off the toilet? So I'm helping her off the toilet, and another contraction's coming, and she's definitely bearing down. I grab a Chucks real fast, throw it down on the floor. We're halfway between the bathroom and the bed. And grab the birth tray, throw that down on the floor. And in that contraction, she delivered her baby, standing up in the middle of the floor, got a Chucks under her. It was very difficult to untangle that nuchal cord with her in a standing position, very slippery, cheesy, vernixy baby. That was my first solo catch. Midwives were down the hall, thankfully, but I was really glad that I felt that instinct to go into that room when I did. or she would have had a toilet baby. So when a multip says, the baby's coming, believe them. That was a great experience. And as for the third case study, which is the grand multip, who we saw the toothpaste meconium and assumed breech. I have not yet been to a breech birth, although midwives in Washington can deliver breech. I assume I will someday. I'm sure there will be some surprises too. So I think it's important to have the education and background in what is normal when it comes to breech birth and how best to be prepared. Like knowing that resuscitation is more needed with breech babies and being prepared for that, making sure that your partners in the situation, assistants, are also trained and ready. Having EMS as a backup can feel like a safety too. I liked that. I like that idea. I just recently took just like a very brief breech course through Reteach Breech, Dr. Stu Fishbein. He's great. Anyway, and I was just fascinated by all the mechanisms of descent of a breech baby and how they, differ from a vertex baby. Anyway, and just like knowing, I think my biggest takeaway from that is seeing that, like, when the baby's coming out and the chest comes out, and you can see that chest cleavage, and like knowing that the arms aren't getting trapped, because if the arms are trapped, they're up like this. And if there's a cleavage, like even with anybody with breasts, the arms are like this, which is where you want them to be. So, so that they can properly descend. Anyway, that was cool. I can't wait to see a breech. Anyway, so those are my takeaways from these case studies.